What you're about to see is a remastering of the Zoroark review that I put out in 2016. Some cuts had to be made, such as me taking out footage for a couple of seconds due to YouTube's content ID and the like, so if you see a black screen or the like, that is why. And the Toucher rant, which some of you may remember, has been significantly altered because originally the pitch was too high, so hopefully this will be an improvement in comparison. This was also recorded on a different microphone, so when you hear the different audio quality between David and Toucher, that is why. So, with all that out of the way, I hope you enjoy.
Alright then, I will grant your vacation in December for those 10 days. Besides, you've done a phenomenal job locating most of the lanterns this year.
Thank you, sir. So, yeah, hopefully I can locate the remaining two Corpse, Blue and Violet either before this vacation or in 2017. Something funny, sir?
You only need to focus on one, Mr. Grimm. I got the blue lantern.
Sir, are you serious?
Yep, that's why my button here is blue.
That's wonderful, sir.
Indeed. Now then, I must take my leave. Have a good evening, Mr. Grimm.
Have a good evening, sir.
Congrats, David.
Thanks, Toucher. Wait a minute. Where's Greninja?
Susan had a meeting at the clinic and needed an example of a living animal, so Greninja volunteered. They should be back in a few hours.
Oh, okay.
But since we're alone, should we try out that Mega Evolution experiment again?
We tried that this morning and we both got pretty injured in the process, so no.
Okay, so what will you do?
Well, I think it's time I finally review that Zoroark movie. Zoroark, Master of Illusions. At long last, I finally get to talk about you. So for those who don't know, way back in 2012, I talked about this movie for a bit in my abysmal top 5 Pokemon generations list. Yeah, that was pretty bad. Then, in 2013, I did a top 15 Pokemon movies list, where I put this film at the bottom and proceeded to bitch up a storm about it. And much like that top 5, a lot of people hated that list, myself included. But it's been 3 years since I last talked about this movie. So have my opinions changed now that I'm older and have rewatched the previous 12 films? Well, let's find out. Our film opens up with the usual World of Pokemon recap that we've seen since movie 4 before cutting to a sport that only Pokemon play. This, my friends, is known as Soccer, and yes, that is seriously how they pronounce it in this film. Basically, think soccer, but only for Pokemon, a lot more complex than it needs to be, and the goal is a floating pyramid instead of a net.
Wow, that sounds pretty cool, actually. So is this film's plot going to revolve around this poker thing? Will we see Ash's group compete in this?
Nope! It only exists as a reason to get Ash's group to Crown City, since that town will be the next location Bakura will be played at, and they really want to watch said match up close.
Well, that's disappointing.
So why do they want to see the match up close? Well, that's because one of the teams that will be competing at Crown City has the 3 legendary dogs on said team. And to demonstrate their threat level, they score a point pretty quickly with their excellent teamwork. So who's the man who's got these 3 dogs? Well, say hello to Kodai. We then go over to a large aircraft carrier where we get introduced to 2 Generation 5 Pokemon, Zoroark and son, Zoroark, who was in Zoroark's fur. But before we can see them interact any further, a door opens up, revealing the 3 legendary dogs, and then cue fight scene! While this is going on though, Kodai and his assistant, named Rowena, are in a chamber above the Pokemon, observing the fight. We also find out during the scene that the 3 dogs Kodai has are nothing more than projections, and we also get introduced to Zoroark's ability, which creates illusions, which Kodai and Rowena are able to see through thanks to special tech they wear. But before the fight can continue, Kodai's bodyguard, who's named Dagoon, subtle, tells him that they are arriving in Crown City, and Kodai decides to stop the fight. But after dispelling the projections, Kodai decides to be a dick and uses a Ninjas to capture the Zorua, which severely pisses off Zoroark, but Kodai paralyzes her so that she can't do shit to save her son. But as Zoro is being taken away to a prison-like area, he breaks free of Ninjask's grasp, but eventually falls out of the ship when trying to escape. But instead of becoming a Zorua pancake, he manages to transform into a skip plume and land safely on the ground. But Kodai surprisingly isn't that bothered over losing Zorua. Why? Well, because Zoroark still thinks her son was captured, and he can use that as leverage to make Zoroark do what he wants. Speaking of Zorua, though, after landing on the ground, he bumps into a Vigoroth, and this causes the Vigoroth and the rest of his group to get pissed at him, and this leads into a chase scene. This eventually gets to a point where Zorua is about to fall off a cliff, but then Ash's group shows up and tells him to stop bullying the Zorua by calling out Ash's Infernape and Don's Mamoswine, 2 Pokemon who are not only in their final stage, but are also much stronger than the Vigoroths. Okay. So after that scene, we find out that Zoroark has telepathy and wants to head to Crown City so that it can save its Mima, and Ash's group decides to help him since they are also heading to Crown City. We then cut to the next day, where Kodai blackmails Zoroark into attacking the city, and she does so, creating a mass panic in the city.
But wait a minute, these are just illusions. Won't people figure it out pretty quickly, making Kodai's plan fall apart at the seams?
Well, Toucher, Kodai's one step ahead on this, as he edits the footage to show that certain things in the city were destroyed when they weren't, and there's this on television, creating a mass evacuation from the main area and allowing Kodai to have the city all to himself.
But why?
Because it's all a part of his plan. You see, folks, Kodai's plan in this film is to find a ripple in time that is located somewhere in the city, and then use his technology to steal his power for himself. Why? Well, Kodai has a special ability that he got 20 years ago that allows him to see into the future, and now it's beginning to degrade. So in order to fix that issue, he needs more time energy.
Okay. But this incident also got the attention of Crown City's guardians, and they head off to confront the threat. What are you, Zackrites? You'll see why shortly.
So with the city blocked off by authorities, Ash's group is unable to enter the city. That is, until a man by the name of Carl shows up to help them. So why does he want to help them? Well, he's currently investigating Kodai and wants to know his secrets, so having some help could help him find said secrets a lot easier than if he were to go it alone. So Carl leads them into the main city thanks to an underground shortcut, and they quickly discover that the damaged areas they saw earlier were completely unharmed. Also, Zoroark's recaptured, but, that's not really important in the grand scheme of things. What is important, however, is that we find out from Carl about an incident 20 years ago that destroyed almost all the trees and flowers in Crown City, and that Crown City has the 3 legendary dogs as guardian protectors that helped out the city in ancient times. Okay, I think now is the time to talk about this incident. It's one of the more infamous moments from my top 15, and now it's time I address it. 20 years ago, Kodai came to Crown City looking for a time ripple, which was created by Celebi coming from the future, and this time ripple collects the energy necessary for Celebi to travel in time while it interacts in the past. One night, however, Kodai attacked Celebi and used a machine to take all the time energy in the ripple for himself, and he succeeded. But this resulted in almost all the trees and flowers in Crown City dying. So what do I think of this now? Does this still bug me as much as it did 3 years ago? Well, no. It's connected to Celebi, it gives Celebi the power to time travel, so fine. If it has this effect that it kills off only the trees, then fine. Whatever. That's all I gotta say about that whole thing. Doesn't bother me anymore. I'll accept it. Fine. Besides, the Guardians probably saved the city when it was affected anyway, so let's move on.
Hold the phone. Carl said there was an incident in Crown City that took place 20 years ago, and then mentions how the Guardians helped out the city in ancient time. Why not have Carl say they helped out 20 years ago as well? Why have it be a different period of time?
Maybe they did help out 20 years ago, but the writers forgot to write that in?
No, David. They never say in this film that the Guardians came to this city and rescued it after the incident that nearly wiped out all the trees and flowers. Trees that contain carbon dioxide, aka air, aka something that living things need to survive. That freaking tells me that they didn't even try to rescue the city after almost all the trees and flowers were completely eradicated. An essential part of life and a part of nature itself almost got completely destroyed, and all this film says about it is that the people and Pokemon in the town worked together to restore it and not the Guardians. They didn't come to rescue the city and its people after it happened? Are you serious? The only defense I could see is that there was nothing they could do since none of them had the power to restore trees, but even then, Thought still paints a terrible picture of these three as Guardians because they didn't even try to help. As an example, they could have had Sweet can use the rains and then to use Sunny Day to help speed up the process of repairing the trees or something. This is like having a bodyguard fail to protect the person they were supposed to protect and then just leave them to repair their own injuries.
Toucher, the writers wouldn't do something like that. I'm sure the Guardians did try to help.
So why not state it then? This film says clear as crystal that they showed up in ancient times, and they make no mention of them helping out when it comes to events 20 years ago for the rest of the film. And as we're going to see later in this movie, they don't even try to stop the guy responsible for the event 20 years ago. They go after Zoroark and confront, not attack Kodai, long after Ash's group thwarts his plans. They failed as Guardians 20 years ago, they'll fail again in the present day since they didn't even stop Kodai. They suck at their jobs. The least they could have done is try to help the city during the event 20 years ago, but based on the dialogue from the film, they didn't even do that. Going back to the bodyguard example for a bit, if the bodyguard did try to help with patching up the injuries or getting the medical attention, yes, that bodyguard still failed to protect the person, but at least he tried to help them after the fact. These guys never stated, and that is disgusting.
Toucher, you're overreacting.
No, David, I am not. In fact, I'm surprised you're not complaining about this. You've seen heroes. You've seen Latios and Latians protect the city they're guarding. One of them even gave their lives to protect it. These guys didn't do shit, and you're not even pissed? Why?
Because I'm saving my opinions on these characters for after the story synopsis. It is not worth going in guns blazing now when I can talk about the roles and issues with their characters in much greater detail in the character section of this review. Calm your tits, save it for the fucking section, okay? Now then. So Kodai has a vision of Ash's group trying to stop him and orders his bodyguard to capture Ash's group while he continues searching for the time ripple. While this is going on, Celebi's just roaming around not doing much, and Rowena decides to look into Kodai's files. Yeah, Rowena's also investigating Kodai. Go figure. Eventually, Ash's group runs into two residents of the city, Joe and Tamara, who are Carl's grandparents, and they decide to chat for a bit, but then Zoroark chases after Zoroark again and gets ambushed by a bunch of Pokemon who live in the city. Pikachu and Piplup try to defuse the situation, but fails miserably, and then Celebi shows up to fix it. Zoroark and Celebi, as well as Pikachu and Piplup, try to go find Zoroark, but despite Ash's group trying to find them, Ash's group gets captured and transported to the airship. That is, until Rowena frees them later on, and gives them the information she stole from Kodai, which includes information from the incident 20 years ago. Over with Zoroark's group, they're at the location where Kodai first stole Celebi's powers, still looking for Zoroark, but then Kodai shows up and tries to capture Celebi. Also, Zoroark gets his ass kicked. And with him calling out to his quote-unquote Mima, Zoroark breaks free of her prison and tries to save him. But then the three legendaries show up to fight Zoroark. Over with Zoroark, it manages to regain consciousness while Kodai has its grips on Celebi and is able to free Celebi before Ash's group shows up with Rowena to try and stop Kodai. Over with Zoroark, we get a fight scene there and then gets resolved pretty quickly for both parties. But at this point in the film, neither Kodai or Ash's group know where the time ripple is, and Kodai has checked all the locations in the city that may or may not have them. So with the situation grim for Celebi, since it needs to find the time ripple, Joe reveals there is one more location that may have the ripple, and it's in the stadium. So we have a big action scene where Ash's group is trying to stop Kodai's group from reaching the stadium, and it all comes to a head when Ash arrives with Celebi at the stadium. Also, during the action scene, Zoroark charges at Kodai ready to bite, and Kodai extends his left hand to block the attack, but it's the hand that has his illusion canceller on it. Grr, I'll stop this creature that can make illusions from hurting me by using my arm that has the device that can stop his illusions. Genius! So they see the portal up ahead, they run towards it, and Kodai has his Magnus, you psychic on Ash, freezing them in place. God damn it! Zoroark then shows up, trying to stop Kodai, but then Kodai reveals Zoroark all captured, and she freezes in place. Kodai then has a Shuppet hit Zoroark with a bunch of attacks while he goes for the time ripple. Jeez, man, you already got her by the figurative balls. This is just overkill. So Kodai gets the power from the time ripple, all the greenery goes to shit, thanks again, Guardians of the City, and then it's revealed that it was an illusion by Zoroark. So let me get this straight. Zoroark, who survived an electric attack, several shocks, ghost attacks, and a fight by the three legendary dogs, is able to make an illusion that encompasses this big of an area and keep it going, despite getting it multiple times, and despite its weakened state, when even earlier in this film, a simple attack dispelled it. Yeah, that makes sense. Give me a fucking break. So Kodai is about to try and grab the time ripple again, despite no longer having the means to do so, and then the legendary dogs show up. So Kodai runs off. It's revealed that Joe recorded Kodai admitting he caused the disaster 20 years ago, resulting in Kodai's arrest, and Zoro and Zoroark go home. The end. Roll credits. So when it comes to this film's story, it's passable. I like the world building done for Crown City, as well as its history. I like that unlike the last movie, there wasn't a big focus on time travel or time-related issues, which they could have easily done with Celebi being in the movie. I really like the bond between Zoro and Zoroark, despite my opinions on Zoroark as a character, but that's about it. The rest of the story is either okay, or just really bad and pointless, like the Guardians. Speaking of the Guardians, now I'm finally going to talk about these characters. Okay. The three Guardians of Crown City were a goddamn waste of space in this movie. Their impact on the film was about as big as the amount of lines Zoroark had, as shown by the fact that their one major action in this film, their biggest contribution, was fighting Zoroark, and even that didn't really go anywhere. Which is kinda sad, since they were built up to be the Guardians of the City, and yet, as my friend said earlier, Latios and Latias were better Guardians. Sure, Latios got captured halfway through, but at least he saved his sister when Annie and Oakley tried to capture both of them. Meanwhile, Latias helped Ash and the group make their way to the museum, fight off the opposition, save her brother, stop the bad guys, and even stop the tsunami that was going to destroy the city they were meant to protect. That is a great example of a Guardian-like character. Hell, even the Entei the Unknown's Made a Movie 3 was a better Guardian than these guys, because he did everything he could to protect Molly. These Guardians, on the other hand, don't deserve build-up. In fact, they deserve to be shoved to the side, especially since the film states that the Pokemon in the city and the humans in the city were the ones to repair the city and rescue it after the incident 20 years ago, not the Guardians. The only reason I could see them existing is so that Zoroark can morph into them later and create the fear. Yeah, because it's not like there are other ways to scare the citizens out of the city, like, gee, I don't know, a friggin' Pokemon that looks like a goddamn demon that no one has seen before. Fear of the unknown is a thing, you guys. You could have easily just had Zoroark running around attacking things with its non-illusionary attack, and then cause the paranoia needed. Christ! As for the other characters, they're fine. Joe has a decent personality and he serves his purpose, same with Rowena. Asher's group is passable in this film. Team Rocket, once again, is wasted and doesn't even have many funny moments in this film. Zoroark is okay. Zoroark is pretty flat character-wise, hence why I hardly mention her in the story synopsis. And as for Kodai, he's actually a pretty decent villain. I think his plan is decent. He's pretty effective as a bad guy, as shown when he captures Asher's group to prevent them from interfering for a while, capturing Zoroark and using Sun as leverage, using his future sight to become big in the business world and control mainstream media, etc. Granted, I think Marcus is a better written bad guy when comparing this film to Arceus, but for a standalone film, he's okay. As for the music, it's mostly mediocre and forgettable. I'm sorry, but a lot of the tracks weren't that great to listen to in my humble opinion, and while they certainly fit the scene they were used in, if you were to ask me to name the song used in the scene or hum it out, I couldn't, because it just didn't leave that big of an impression on me in comparison to songs like Erasion from movie 10, We Will Meet Again from Lucario's film, or even Prince of the Sea from movie 8. Hell, the only song I actually liked and remembered from this film is the ending song, I Believe in You by Aaron Bowman. But that's only because I like the beat of the song, the lyrics, the energy of the song, and because I think it really fits the tone it was going for when it comes to the bond with Zoro and Zoroark. Aside from that, the rest of the soundtrack is pretty forgettable in my opinion. Finally, we have animation. And honestly, I feel that the animation team did a pretty good job in this department. Effects look nice, the coloring is good as well as the lighting used in certain scenes, fight scenes are fluid as well as the action scenes, and even the character models are pretty good, though a couple of frames are either meme-worthy or really freaking weird. Seriously, what am I looking at? But that's it for animation. And now I think is the time I wrap this up. Overall, I think Zoroark Master of Illusions is a pretty mediocre film. Sure, most of the story is passable, as well as most of the characters, and the animation is handled really well, but the music is pretty forgettable and mediocre for the most part. The rest of the story is either okay or just poor, and the rest of the characters are either pointless or bland. But would I classify this as the worst Pokemon film I've seen? Hell no. Compared to the awful dub of the first Pokemon film and the terrible Destiny Deoxys, this shit is tame. Now granted, I probably wouldn't want to rewatch it again unless I was doing a marathon or a re-review, but this isn't even close to being the worst Pokemon film I've covered thus far. But that's just me. Thank you all for watching, and next time we meet, I won't be looking at Victini's film because next month is December, and as I said on my Darkrai review, I will be reviewing Ruby Volume 3 in December. Plus, this will give me a bit more time to prepare for the Victini film since this first installment in the Unova trilogy is a double feature. Yup. One plot split into 2 movies, and I'm gonna look at both, hopefully. So thank you all for watching, and take care.